Are you sitting comfortably, boys and girls? Okay.
I am.
You're speaking to a seasoned pro over here.
Yeah.
The camera doesn't lie. A wise old man once told me.
Okay, Chris, can you clap your hands in front of your face? Just put your cup down and clap very loudly.
What's that for?
That's to sync up the sound with the...
Oh, that's clever.
That's why you said you have the clipboards.
Yeah, oh, is that what it's for?
So that sound can...
Oh, very good.
Good man.
Look into the camera or?
Look at me.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your name, where do you come from? That kind of thing.
Christian name, Alexander James Bradbury, although I don't think anyone here will call me by that. Most well known as Bradders in these parts. From London, East London.
My name's Pete Cryer. I'm from Cambridge originally.
Hi, I'm Rob from Kingsbury in northwest London, and I'm responsible for this compendium / scrapbook home video of me and my friend's time in New York City.
I wasn't recording the last video.
Safe.
Let's record! So here we are.
My name is Chris Skitch. I was born in America, and we're sat here in America in a park in New York. I grew up in England. My parents lived and worked here in the 80s, so I was lucky enough to have the golden ticket to come here.
It'd be 2016. What did I come here for? I moved over for work with a company called Captify, some sort of search intelligence nonsense.
Basically, they're nonsense. But nonsense with rules, which is what we like. So,
looking to open a New York office. So here I was.
first moved to New York in September 2016. I'd say work mostly, but you know, the lifestyle.
I moved here when I was 25 years old. I just got out of a long-term relationship. One might call it a mid-20s crisis.
Yeah, having grown up in London, I just felt like I really needed a change of scenery. I'd actually moved to Prague in 2015. I wasn't there long before I got the offer to move to New York, and yeah, it was a dream come true, to be honest.
It was a blizzard that night. I mean, we got through our shitty Airbnbs with me and Woody. Where was it? It was in sort of East Williamsburg, off the Graham L stop. Couldn't get into the house originally. It was the middle of the night. Struggled to get in with the lockbox. I had a cot for a bed in my little shitty bedroom. Sirens wailing all night, bars on the windows. I didn't think I was going to make it through till morning. Not the sort of fairy tale start, if you like. Having a look when the next flight home was for. And yes, the sun came up. We opened up to a bright day. Came into the city, very overwhelming.
See, that's the best part. My fondest memories are just coming to New York. I didn't know anyone. My uncle on Staten Island, this is my stepmother's uncle, picked me up and let me stay with him for a couple of weeks.
I first moved to Williamsburg, where I lived in a house with 5 ladies, which if you've ever seen Love Actually, it's nothing like that. 2 of them were Mormons, which I'll be honest, I didn't really know existed prior to living with them. I thought they were more like fictional beasts, like unicorns.
First actual apartment not paid for by the company was in Chinatown. And fuck me, do I regret living in Chinatown. It smelled dreadful. Especially in the summer, you know, Chinatown's got a lot of fish markets, right? And when it's 100 degrees, or if we're using the proper system, 35 degrees outside, and you have fish guts spilled all over the pavement, turns into a massive frying pan, the smell is horrendous. Combine that with rotting rubbish and last night's vomit and piss. It's quite the aroma, shall we say. Apart from that, Chinatown was great.
Before I got into an Airbnb in Fort Greene. I only chose that place because there used to be a flea market there, a great flea market there, and I wanted to be near the flea market. That closed eventually.
Yeah, the company put me up for the first night in the Ludlow, which is a very posh, nice hotel in the Lower East Side. But then the next day I had to pack my bags and go and fend for myself. My brother's been in New York for a good while before me, so I always knew the kind of area that I wanted to live in. And after about 4 months of short-term rentals, I finally found my place in the East Village on 1st and 12th, right on the corner there. And I've had a fantastic last 4 years living here.
Then we moved over to Williamsburg, which was a much better place, full of the hipsters, but clean nonetheless, and modern buildings, rooftops. I think we must have had about 100 parties on our rooftop in that place in Williamsburg. It was fantastic.
Hi, we're here at H3 Bushwick Place Film Festival with Rob and Alex. So good to have you back, guys.
Thanks very much. Good to have you back.
Thank
Great
you
to have you back.
so much.
It's,
Do you ever remember me and you being interviewed by Paris for Bushwick TV?
I absolutely do not remember that, no.
it's been great. We haven't caught up in a while, and it's been fantastic to do so.
Yeah.
So, such a privilege to be part of the film festival again.
Yeah.
4 years in a row.
Wait, are you sure that was me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Video of us together.
And I can't wait for you to be in
Yeah.
it. You to
Thanks
be in it.
again. Thanks again. Thanks again.
Oh, well, you're very welcome.
Bye, bye, bye.
So North Wheezy. So
Represent inside.
jokes.
From there I moved to Bushwick, 992 Broadway. Moved in with a ragtag bunch of characters. One guy called Andre, probably only seen him about 6 times in my life after living with him for 3 years. A bombastic LA black girl called Jacqueline, and then a horrible little pikey called Katie. She was dirty.
Why was she a pikey?
She used to steal everyone's food. She used to eat chili that had been left in the slow cooker for days. Plus she had a load of skiddies on her toilet.
But after a while, I took this room of a girl that I knew back in London. She was staying in Bushwick in a loft for the summer. And she offered me this room, and at the time it sounded like a great idea. And as a matter of fact, I'm very fond of those times, living in a loft with no heating and no AC in some of the coldest winters on record here in New York, with some very interesting people. You know, I was living with models, a transgender guy, a photographer. There were naked people in the apartment almost every day, doing photo shoots and whatnot. And there was me doing my internship, the first job I could get in New York, for $12 an hour, with my suit on.
Yeah, I just jumped in, and I ended up doing loads of things I'd always kind of wanted to do. I made a few documentary shorts, had a few articles published, just explored the city to no end. Joined a comedy improv team. I was shit, by the way. Joined a German football team.
When I lived in England, I was always envious and angry that I never lived through a movement or a time. I was always too young. I was too young for the Libertines. I was too young for Oasis. But that whole, let's call it jizz jazz, Mac DeMarco, home shake, Conor Moccasin scene was really blooming when I came here, and my roommates at the time dragged me, this was an Aussie guy, to a show at Baby's Alright. And yeah, I had some great times.
And then just the fun, a city where anything can happen.
Yeah, you sort of got the New York bug, if you will. Absolutely loved the city, stuck on the space, never want to return.
But I'm glad I did it, and here we are.
It occurred to me, first Saturday I was here, I was with Woody, and she went on some sort of Tinder date or something, and I kind of realized, you know, it's a Saturday, I have no plans for probably the first time in as long as I can remember. I could sit here like a wet blanket, or I could go out and explore. A couple of pints of Dutch courage, and off I ventured to the local bar. Before I knew it, I was invited over to some table. Some kind randomer took pity on me, introduced me to their mates, and that was the end of that. I just sort of realized that people here are actually very friendly, and there's nothing to it.
And who were the mates? Are you still in contact with those people?
No idea. Couldn't tell you. Must have done that same expedition multiple times. I'm quite happy these days, even still, to go out on a little solo expedition and just start chatting to people.
It was very tough at first. It was very easy to meet females just because the workplace is full of them, but it was very tough to make male friends in America, I think, just because I think American men and English men aren't quite on the same wavelength, as it were.
I would disagree with that. I think New York's probably the easiest place to make friends ever, maybe outside of university. I've never had an easier time making mates.
I went through a stint of using Bumble BFF when I first moved here. Started speaking to a couple of guys, generic names, Mike and Jesse. Jesse's not that much of a generic name, but very American. Mike and Jesse, and I got chatting to them, seemed normal enough. Got to the stage where they asked why I was on the app, and I said, I've just moved here. Reasonable enough answer. So I, returned the question. I said, why are you on the app? And they were just like, just looking for friends. I was like, how long have you lived in New York? And they said 8 years. To which point I thought, well, haven't you got any friends? So I had to, sack that off afterwards.
Like when I first came here, I knew nobody. You really scrape the barrel of your phone book, your Facebook account. I hope Facebook doesn't exist in the future when someone reads this or watches this. But those are also the best times because I made great friends.
How did I meet my friends? Let's see, let's go with a chronological order, shall we? The first one, probably the most memorable one, was Robert Oliver. Where did I meet him? I was down at West Ham pub in the morning. I like to go and cheer on the Mighty Hammers. First thing on a Saturday morning, end up boozing all day long. Ended up in the East Village at a bar called Maiden Lane. It must have been cold because I had my West Ham scarf on. It would have made sense if it was February. And some guy at the bar started chatting to me, saying, you're a West Ham fan.
West Ham, by the way.
So naturally, we conversed, swapped numbers, and didn't speak again for 6 months.
So anyways, time went past, and I was on Venmo one day, and I was paying someone, and on the home feed I saw Alex Bradbury pop up. Now Venmo is all linked to your kind of phone contacts, so it's obviously kind of being imported through that, and I was like, how the hell do I know it's Alex Bradbury? And I looked him up.
When I get a text out of the blue asking if I fancied going to the match that day. Had the number saved as Rob Oliver. Didn't know, I think it was Rob West Ham. I had the number saved as Rob West Ham. Didn't know who he was. Tried to do the old reverse engineer of the phone search, plug it into Facebook, plug it into Google, nothing comes up. Thought, fuck it, we'll meet him. So we ended up going to watch a match together, and the rest was history. Became my travel companion for all of my ridiculous trips around the world. Someone always up for a pint. Loves a good booze up, especially in the East Village. So that was the story of Rob. Who was next? I think next was Pete. Pete actually was a client of Captify's at the time, and I met him in a beer garden one night. He just seemed to be over in New York, I think on a scouting trip before he moved here, and we sat and drank pints all night, and naturally took his phone number and said, give us a bell when you get here. So a few months passed, and he comes to New York, and we took him out for beers as any welcoming party would do.
Then I guess my first friend, a young man named Alex Bradbury, where I met him at a work event at the Standard Beer Garden, where he had like a broken ankle, a shattered ankle, I believe, at the time. So he was walking around with like 2 crutches. So I thought he was a bit of an invalid at first, but I thought, you know what, beggars can't be choosers. I'll go out for a drink with him.
Final one, Skitch. How do we meet Skitch? Skitch was a very interesting one as well, actually, very random.
I'd met Alex and Pete. This links nicely to the story I just told. To those Bushwick days.
Some house party deep in dark Brooklyn. No idea whose it was or why we were there, or don't remember most of the evening actually.
We went to one house party by a man. It was a man called Jackson, I believe. So we met him in a random bar, and he invited us back to his house party. And then from there, me and Bradders met a guy called Christopher Skitch.
They'd showed up randomly to a house party. I think it was around New Year's Eve, it was around that time. And my Aussie friend had dragged them in off the street or somewhere.
I think once again I was wearing the West Ham scarf, and that was the talking point.
And of course we became instant friends, because what else do British expats do? They will hang out with each other.
That's a good pointer to anyone who moves to New York. Get yourself a West Ham scarf, and it's getting guaranteed to get you some mates. So anyways, started playing beer pong with Skitch. Naturally start trading stories about, you know, how we came to New York and what we're doing here, etc. Turns out we're the same person. You know, lived in the same, well, went to the same university, the same college, lived on the same road, I think, on 2 separate occasions in East London. Both had the American and the British green cards, or passports even. I think at that point we decided to stop asking each other about our lives as we realized we could be long lost brothers or something. And fuck me, that would have been awful.
And I remember when I first met Skitch, I was quite enamoured by him. I thought he was very charming, very just a young go-getter, just a great guy. 3 years later, not so much. No, he's all right.
So I instantly took to Skitch. I had like a real appreciation for his like in-depth knowledge of New York heritage, New York culture. I also, learned that he was an antiques dealer in a former life, which I thought was pretty cool.
After that, probably 3 weeks after we first met Skitch, we'd all kept in touch via text. And then Bradders had given us an invite to the elusive Smithfield Hall, which sounds quite like, an underground guild of sorts. But then there was another guy there. How quite to position him? Very, very forward, I thought. Quite forthcoming, but quite funny as well. So that man was Rob Oliver. You're going to edit that and cut that into something great, aren't you?
And yeah, we met Mr. Oliver here in Smithfield Hall. And we've had some good times, haven't we, Mr. Oliver?
And then after that, I think we got a taxi down to, I want to say Ace Bar on the Lower East Side. And then again, just a day that descended into madness.
Safari tour of Manhattan.
A bond was formed between me, him, Alexander, and Peter.
No, 3 years later, here we are, me, Bradders and Skitch, plus one other. Nice little gang. One-liners.
New York has got its characters, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, we have to give Canadian Steve a mention, obviously.
Fucking Canadian Steve, bloody hell.
Oh my goodness, what a character.
So Canadian Steve is actually one of my oldest friends in New York. I met him in my first week of moving here.
So Steve, never tell him where we are, what we're doing or anything. He just sort of appears, but not until 11 p.m. at night. So, I mean, even if he gets whispers of a plan, it's normally for about 6 or 7 or 8, normal times that normal people go out and meet. We'll move on 6, 7 bars later, and you turn around and it seems to appear out of nowhere. Steve is there, just stood, looming.
Nocturnal.
There's rumors he's a vampire. I can't disprove it. Could be the case.
I believe it's because the fact he won't come out until the sun is down. I think there was one time we saw him prior to sunset, and there was fucking smoke coming off him, bats following him. Simon even screamed and gasped in horror.
As I live and breathe,
Go on.
Canadian Steve, in the daylight.
Under the t-shirt, not a shirt.
And he's got a security guard with him.
Security!
But the sun quickly went down after that, so the burning tamed and everyone was all right.
Either way, Canadian Steve, what a great guy.
Very easy to talk to, Steve. Very calming presence.
Nothing but a big old kind Canadian heart.
That's if you see him after dark. See him during dark, that's frightful. But,
Danny Biscuits up there on the list, ducks his head in and out.
Dan B is a very talented artist. Most of the lads have a personalised piece done by him. Him and his lovely wife Jess keep a good home.
Thank you. Thanks. You didn't have to. I was just like, what?
well, where do we start? Man amongst boys. Dan B, I think, is just the classy kind of male that every man almost aspires to be. Knows his way around a kitchen, wears floral shirts, has chest hair, and a French last name. What more could you want than that?
He also has a dog with a French name.
You must be referring to Jacques. Jacques Cousteau. Jacques is a sweet little old man, I guess, or old dog, I suppose. Jacques is a character. He always gets an honourable mention. He's very polite as a dog. When you go around to Danby's house, got one's called Freya. It's a bit of a fucking head case all over the shop, and you have Jacques just sitting, waiting kindly for your attention, patiently.
And I was actually very fortunate to dog sit for Jacques and Freya, the other one, a while back in Clinton Hill. I mean, there's obviously been some characters that have kind of just popped up, and sometimes only just for kind of one night at a time. My most favourite one was Jojo. Now, Jojo was a German au pair.
I love it. I love it. Jojo rapping to the brownstones of West Village.
Who was looking after children of some wealthy family up in Harlem. And we kind of just took him under our wing and took him out. We went on a venture all over Manhattan. I think we actually ended up at one point watching the boxing at Madison Square Gardens. Yeah, I think he was last seen in Midtown on the back of a truck heading uptown. That was the last we ever saw from him. Hope he was okay. Actually, I hope the kids he looks after were okay as well. Olu told me once that I was his second favourite white person, completely out of the blue. Apparently I'm in second place after Wayne Rooney.
Mr. Keels appears.
Keels, dirty bastard. Secret dirty bastard though. I remember the first time I met Keels was in London. Went for a nice breakfast at Percy and Founders. I had the shakshuka, he had the French toast. And I remember just meeting him and thinking, just what a nice man. What a lovely, wholesome guy. And then I met him in New York and he's just dirty, isn't he?
Oh, hello, dear. Didn't think it was me, did you? Don't even know who I am.
I call him the East Village Spider. He mainly only really hangs out on St. Mark's, specifically between Avenue A and First Ave. Just those kind of like row places there. I call him a spider because all you have to do is kind of like, prod him that there's a beer on that block, and out he comes out of his apartment and he'll be there in seconds to join you. Yeah. Simon, we met during the World Cup.
Very polite, posh Geordie. He'll take whatever you say, nods a lot, nods and agrees a lot. But no, Simon, and he's been an integral member of the group ever since.
Ben's a great lad. Ben's got a really cool roof that he's never shy about inviting people over to. Some of the best views in Manhattan, actually, I'd have to say.
Got my West Ham crew. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the chairman.
Morning, Chris Owen, chairman here.
Mr. Cooper, LK. Who else do we have? I mean, it's just the usual suspects that you see at all sorts of parties. You got T, you got Taylor, you got Woody,
Clara, Claire, Gnome, Niall, Jagus, which is a syllabic abbreviation of Jen and Agus. And obviously give a big shout out to Charlie, Wiki, Sammy, Mark, and all the other tech bros that took me under their wing when I first moved here. Took me to some very cool parties. And obviously a huge shout out to Hattie, who's obviously helped with this film massively. She's had to sit behind the camera for the last 2 hours, listening to me chat absolute bollocks. So thanks for all that.
That's probably the main characters.
And we've had some good times, haven't we, Mr. Oliver?
What's been some highlights?
Oh, I was thinking about this the other day. Even though it was as recent as this year, I've got to say our trip to the Hamptons was definitely memorable.
The Hamptons trip, that was another one, absolutely comic. I mean, you couldn't write some of the holidays that we've been on.
The Hamptons trip, I think that was just because it's something that obviously gets a lot of traction in New York. People think they should go. You know, it's the go-to trip of anyone who lives in New York, I think. The go-to summering holiday. And we had never been.
I've always been intrigued by Long Island. Having family out that way, I often get the Long Island Railroad and I often sort of think how much I'd love to just spend a day getting off at all the little towns along the way and just exploring. Hicksville, Babylon, Amityville, Massapequa. But the Hamptons, to be honest, just never really jumped out at me. I mean, I'd obviously heard about it, but yeah, I was never that drawn to it.
Hamptons is a weird place because it's fueled by the New York elite. You know, it's very social up there.
Where people, they don't go on holiday, they holiday. You know, as a verb. But we thought, you know, it's a rite of passage, New York. New Yorkers go to the Hamptons for summer holiday. We have to check it out.
Naturally, all of us being a bit tight purse-stringed, we thought, how can we do Hamptons on a budget? And naturally, we thought we'd book a really nice house on wheels. So
we hired this obnoxious RV, which was damn near impossible to drive. I actually crashed into a gas station on the way as we were leaving.
And straight away, as soon as we saw it, it was just hilarious, just laughter. As soon as you see that stupid thing pulling up, it was just hilarious.
Hey! Paradise.
It's a wanky bit of kit, that, isn't it?
Always wears new sunglasses.
I think it was Skitch's fantastic idea.
Because as soon as he thought about a trip on a budget, he was right in there.
Let's camp in an RV in the Hamptons. Could not stick out any worse than that.
We stayed in a huge RV. It was actually quite luxurious and spacious, but I don't think we were cramped for 1 second.
I was quite fortunate. I had there was like a sort of a west wing at the back of the RV. There's a queen bed and a night table, and it was very good.
But we just did it like complete anti-heroes in an RV, staying in my aunt's driveway. I'm going to use that term aunt loosely as well.
There is nowhere you can park a bloody great camper because I like to keep the aesthetic of the place feeling upmarket and posh. You know, all of a sudden Skitch has a family member that lives in the Hamptons. Never heard of this person before. They were American. No mention to the name Skitch. I think he's just decided this poor old lady probably got dementia. We'll just park on her drive and I'll play the role of grandson. Might even get some pocket money out of it. Who knows?
As we got there, we camped out in Skitch's aunt, grandma, relative. I don't even know who she was.
Joan.
Joan was her name.
Joan is my grandmother's cousin's wife.
So, up we rock to Joan's house. Joan's not there. Perfect. Of course she's not. Why would she be? So her poor little housemaid comes trotting out and says, "You can't park here." Probably, fair warning, as we don't know who you are. Skitch says, "Don't worry, boys, I'll handle it." off he pops to have a word with Gertrude. Gertrude must have been about a 70-year-old Filipino lady, absolute character.
Filipino lady who helped look after Joan because she's quite elderly. She's an entirely different story altogether. We'll get back to her in a second, but
She's just giving me his car keys.
Fucking that's the result.
For their car.
Transport for the week. Either way, so we park our bloody great RV, run a power cord inside, get some electricity, and I think there was a hose somewhere at some point or something as well. And then Joan comes home, and she said, "Oh yes, sure, I know you, Christopher."
Well, see, Joan was great about the whole thing because she likes the company, I think.
Either way, naturally, her daughter turns up shortly after, as there are strange men staying on my drive. Daughter, what's going on? So she had to come and sniff us out.
So I had to her daughters had to broker it though. I had to speak to them, and you know there wasn't really any humming and hawing, but it was more like, is this going to work? Is this going to part? Are you going to fit in there? And that kind of thing.
It must have been so weird for them to come back and just find us happy few, us band of brothers, just camping on her driveway. Not a clue who we are.
I think the whole experience was quite positive.
Realised we were harmless, and we were just there for a laugh. So she let us stay. Good-natured woman, whatever her name was.
But she was actually very welcoming. She let us camp on her drive, let us use her water, let us eat her bagels.
Joan, and family, if you ever need a place in New York City, my basement is yours to have.
So Hamptons, again, it was just one thing after the next.
The actual Hamptons trip was very nice. We got to see how the other half live.
I love your establishment, I love the sign, I love the outdoor area, I had such a great time. What's the name
We went out to some wanky beach bar where all the Turtle Bay crowd go, all the dude bros high-fiving and chest bumping and bro duding.
I mean, the kids I work with and all their mates were just there. You couldn't avoid them. It's like Murray Hill and Kips Bay on Thames.
Drunken tuna?
Sloppy tuna.
Sloppy tuna, that was it. We told you have to go there. $20 entry fee for a shitty beach bar to then pay for extortionate rate for drinks. I don't know why people go to the Hamptons. Then we went that evening to a posh hotel. Sat at the top of the cliffs, and there was a DJ, and there was a nice warm fireplace. We did not pack appropriately, by the way, because we thought we were going to the beach. So we just thought, oh yeah, we'll go out in shorts and t-shirts. Turns out it gets quite cold in the evening. A little bit civilized. Bought a few bottles of wine.
Went to a couple of fancy places, Gurneys, where we met a lovely Kazakh girl called Hyena. Lovely laugh.
Enter Hyena and Co. Hyena and Friend. Hyena was Kazaki, so we decided Pete would be Kazaki. He can blend in anywhere, any Pan-Asian area.
She was very nice. She was like very chatty, very welcoming, just like talking to us, just genuinely interested in what we had to say. And I guess she was quite attractive as well, which unusual for us lot. They became a bit of our crew for the weekend. We met up with them on the Saturday night as well, and yeah, had a very lovely time.
Yeah, I think the Hamptons royalty really kind of admired our bohemian approach.
Very bohemian.
You can tell.
They're
The
sleeping
Dippin'
in a
Dots are
fucking
giving away.
RV.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with our mobile palace. Yeah.
I know. If the RVs are rocking.
Our accessible luxury.
It was only the part-timers that sneered at us. As they say, the booze come from the cheap seats.
What happened next? The rest of the evening's a bit of a blur. We went to some bars or some clubs or something, and then we had pizza at home in our RV. Woke up next morning, first thing you need, obviously, wake up in the searing heat, in a sweat box with pizza grease everywhere is a White Claw. So 18 of those later, we decided let's go down to Surf Beach, something beach, North Beach, Pepsi, no, don't tell me. Navy Beach, that was it. Navy Beach. Actually my favorite spot of the whole holiday. Went to Navy Beach and just sort of sat in the sun and drank loads of drinks and had a great merry old time. Very, very sophisticated. Hyena and friend turned up again. No idea what friend's name was. And we had a nice night.
I reckon it's actually impossible, so you're
It's definitely possible. Like someone's done it before, but you gotta do it. Okay. You won't hold it with one hand. How easy. Would the owner of the red Vauxhall Astra please remove their vehicle? Alright, come on, let's go.
I went to Rushmeyer's that evening. Rushmeyer's is the place where you have to go when you go to the Hamptons. Queued for hours on end to watch a bunch of spoilt brats tip off the bouncer on their way to, you know, $100 entry to skip the queue. But we said no, sir, not for us. We're gonna queue up and wait for 3 hours to get in.
Part of the fun was honestly just laying about Joan's house. As soon as she would leave with her, I think it was her daughter and her son-in-law, we would kind of really, you know, just regress into horrible English people. Just beer bellies were out, shirts were off, people were like kicking the ball against the wall, throwing beers at each other, trying to like kick the ball through the door. I think at one point Skitch was even just sitting in her wheelchair, just like using that as his little porch dwellings for the afternoon, just like slapping his belly. Truly disgusting behaviour.
I think the neighbour's dog showed up. To be fair, I think to most people it looked like we were just perpetually locked out of the house and were waiting for someone to return with a key, because we were just sort of lounging about, loitering actually, probably more like it.
Little facts just for Rob on request here. We have the lovely black watch tartan blanket here. Let's get a close up on the label. Whitney, as in the Whitney by-election, made in England. Navy blue and green, Queen's tartan. See you later.
And then I guess the other surprising part of the trip was, it shouldn't have been surprising, but it was, where we just had we're having a lovely family dinner. We thought we'd do a barbecue for Joan and her daughter and her son-in-law, just as a thanks for letting us stay. And Gertrude came out again, lovely Gertrude. And we're all just sitting around the table chatting. We found out Gertrude was from Queens. And then suddenly, literally out of nowhere, she just kind of, we got onto topics, I think, of just talking about the subway. And like, you know, it's a classic point of something you can bond over, just how bad the New York subway was. And we were kind of like, you know, riffing, saying like, oh yeah, the times, they take so long. They never arrive on time, unreliable. And Gertrude just comes out with, she says people, and everyone just stops dumbfounded. And Joan's daughter-in-law, again, very, very, you know, politically correct woman, first, you know, tried to laugh it off, just like, oh, what'd she like? But then Gertrude that was it for her. The floodgates were open, she just kept going. And
yeah, I mean, it all got a little bit heated, and almost just like that, Joan's granddaughter pops out with a violin, starts playing some beautiful music, and all of a sudden, sort of like, you know, order is restored. We're all one again. We're all sort of one nation, one people.
hey! I think there's a video of it somewhere, so look out for that one.
And then what happened when you were driving home with Gertrude?
She hopped in the RV. It was a bit like the Terminator, you know, when he comes on, or the Simpsons version of the Terminator with the golf clubs, where she just clacks in and gets in there. I'm kidding, we offered her a lift. But she needed to get back to the train station, so hopped her on. She brought her little Zimmer frame, brought her bag, hopped in, sat in the front seat up with Uncle Bradders. And then, yeah, we drove to the station, she hopped off, and then that was the last we ever saw of her.
Yeah, thinking back on it, the Hamptons was, you know, very expensive and pretty shit, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever laughed so much. It was just non-stop sort of lad camaraderie. cracking jokes left, right, and centre, drinking beers, and it was a good old trip. Again, a very blurry one.
And yeah, we spent too much, we drank too much, we ate too much, we embarrassed ourselves too much, and there were fun times. It was very nice, other than getting a fucking tick bite. Yeah.
It might be a good fucking movie after all this, Rob. A lot of footage going on.
Cousins.
What do you think about home? Is New York ever going to be home?
We've got to tread lightly here.
New York is definitely home now. Yeah, I think after the first year, I decided that this was home now. I don't see myself leaving. I don't think it's got everything. It's a great city, and I want to be here for the foreseeable future.
I don't know. New York is a tremendous place. It's a great place. I love New York, but you really need to have a good financial base here. The cost of living here is outrageous.
Money is great in America if you're not poor for obvious reasons or sick. Money is brilliant.
Healthcare, education, living expenses, rent. It's not cheap. So if you're not making that wage, this place isn't for you. And London's much the same, but I think New York is like that personified on steroids almost. So look, it can be the best place in the world, but when you're a young guy just trying to make it, it's very aspirational, it's good, but it's not for everyone, and it's very unfair. It's the capitalist dream.
So I give to my young self. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't need to go out till 6 a.m. 5 nights a week.
Just get involved and don't worry about it. Whatever it is, just don't worry about it. Unless it's life-threatening, then probably worry about it. But
what else would I say? Nothing good happens after 4 a.m. No need to continue the party all night. Not much else. I think I've done it pretty well. I've had a good stint in New York. It's lots of memories made. Some good, some bad, but lots of stories regardless.
New York's been good to me. Made some good friends. I've had the best times of my life here. Coming at 25 years old. No, after almost 5 years now.
not always easy, ups and downs in New York, but I don't regret it for a second. I feel like I've grown a lot as a human, and just in myself as well. So yeah, great times all round. Made some great friends as well, obviously.
People leaving, yeah.
People come and go in New York. That's the nature of this place. No one stays for long.
The thing about New York is most people move to the city and they have an intention of leaving again at some point or another. You know, people come and just think, oh, I'll do a few years and then I'll go.
You yin yang, heads tails, up down. You come, you go, I guess.
So you know, we've had a few friends come and go. You know, it was a real shame losing Cashin. You know, that was a few years ago. Really miss her. Miss Olu, that was another good one. You know, he's moved out to LA, so that was quite a recent one.
It's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of being here. It's just the reality of being in New York. People are always going to come and go. Friendship groups are formed, and then they slowly disintegrate. Our good friend Peter's just moved to Chicago. That's more recent.
Pete's just moved to Chicago. Another one that hurts.
Then Saturday, I'm moving to Chicago. Just something new, I think. You know, been in New York 3 years now. I feel like I've kind of done everything New York has to offer within reason. Just want to try something new and begin a new chapter of life.
Any regrets? Just this one. Do you get that?
What are you hoping to get out of Chicago?
A bit more relaxation, I think, and maybe a bit more grown-up behaviour. That would be nice. Sophisticated dinners, wine goblets, cheese.
I expect more will leave over time, but you know, the good news is that it brings in new people as well. So, you know, one in, one out.
And all those groups were all over the place. And as I've been here longer and longer, people have fallen at the wayside and people have left. People have gone their own direction. And I've also done my own thing too, you know. I've been very focused on my work, as lame as that sounds, but that's the one reason I'm here. That's the only reason I'm here. Is to get paid.
And where do you think you'll be in 5 years' time?
That's a great question. I mean, 5 years I don't think is enough to really see big changes. I would be surprised if I was still here in 5 years. I could also very much be back home in Europe in 5 years. I'd love to be in Japan or Tokyo or Hong Kong in 5 years. I'm open, you know. That's the great thing about being single and almost 30 years old. We shall see. We never know what's going to happen. We never know, do we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to building a bit of a life here. I've just got my green card. I want to start eating healthily, planning for the future. I have to start planning a best man speech for the wedding of Alex Bradbury and Clara Schultz. So looking forward to that, and thanks guys. It's a truly big honour to get up there and be up there with you guys. I mean, the speech is going to be hard to write now because I've kind of given away all the stories that were going to be in it.
Tonight is my last night out drinking with the gang. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll just be, you know, on all fours, scrubbing my floor, trying to get all the dust out.
Us, because it's a big production team.
Just in case.
Pick it up.
Hello? We're actually we're on film right now.
Huh?
We're on film right now.
Put it on loudspeaker then.
You are on loudspeaker.
Alright, you can. Where are you?
We're at the office, but we're going to head over in a bit.
Okay, well I'm by Union Square, so where do I head?
Go to drop-off service.
It's so awkward when you know you're being recorded.
Just
you don't know what to say.
Say something funny.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Ah. Why is it brown?
Right.
That is brilliant. That is very.
Are we done?
I think we're done.
Perfect.
Yeah, cool. Well, cheers and thanks for sticking around and watching this very self-indulgent video. Well, yeah, cheers to the scrapbook of fun. And big shout out to Hattie again, legend. Cheers.